Every book, a new way of seeing the world. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the new space economy and why the next gold rush isn't on Earth. Here's a question that might sound crazy. What if the most important business story happening right now isn't AI? I know. Hear me out. While everyone's refreshing their feeds about the latest AI model, there's a completely different revolution unfolding. Not in a data center, up there, in space. And I don't mean moon landings and astronaut dreams. I mean a multi-trillion-dollar industry reshaping global power, data, and money right now in orbit above your head. The book is called The New Space Economy, written by Matthew Weinzierl, Harvard Business School professor, former McKinsey advisor, former White House economic advisor, and Brendan Roussy, a strategist embedded with the U.S. Space Force. These aren't sci-fi enthusiasts. These are people who understand money, markets, and military strategy. And they're saying, space is the next economic frontier, and the window to understand it is right now. 3 big ideas from this book. Let's get into it. Hashtag idea 1. The revolution wasn't a moonshot. It was a business decision. For decades, space belonged to governments. Apollo, the shuttle, massive national prestige projects. The model was simple. Politicians set the goal, taxpayers fund it, scientists execute it. Cost doesn't matter. Winning matters. And that worked for what it was designed to do. But here's the problem. When you try to make space routine, not just historic first, but go there regularly and cheaply, the government model completely falls apart. The space shuttle is the perfect case study in how not to do it. It was supposed to be the workhorse of space travel. Reusable, reliable, affordable. But because it was government-run with no competition, no cost discipline, and every single component had to be military-grade certified, one launch cost $1.5 billion. Let that sink in. $1.5 billion. Per flight. That's 3 fully loaded Boeing 787s. Just to go to orbit and come back. The shuttle didn't open up space. It became a monument to bureaucratic inefficiency that blocked commercial innovation for 30 years. Then something changed. And his name is Elon Musk. Now, set aside whatever you think about him personally. What SpaceX did technically is genuinely one of the most important engineering achievements in modern history. First principles thinking. Musk didn't ask, how do we improve existing rockets? He asked, what does it actually cost to build a rocket from raw materials? And why is the final bill 1,000 times higher? The answer was waste, redundancy, tradition. His breakthrough, the Falcon 9, a rocket with a reusable first-stage booster that returns to Earth and lands vertically, ready to fly again. Experts called it impossible. SpaceX did it anyway. The result? Launch cost per kilogram dropped by over 90%. Not 10%, not 30%, 90%. Think about what that means. Shipping 1 kilogram to orbit used to cost the price of a luxury car. Now it costs the price of a decent laptop. That single shift unlocked an entire new economy. But here's the twist most people miss, and it's crucial. SpaceX didn't do it alone. In 2011, after the shuttle retired, NASA was in crisis. No vehicle to get astronauts to the International Space Station. Instead of building a new government rocket, NASA did something bold. It said, we're not going to be the operator anymore. We're going to be the customer. They launched the Commercial Orbital Transportation Services program. They told private companies, if you can deliver cargo to the ISS reliably and cheaply, we'll buy the service. We won't tell you how to build the rocket. We'll just pay for the outcome. That contract was the oxygen SpaceX needed when it was burning through cash and nearly bankrupt. The lesson here is bigger than aerospace. When governments stop trying to do everything themselves and instead become the first smart customer, they can ignite entire new industries without micromanaging them. AI, biotech, clean energy. The model applies everywhere. Hashtag idea 2. Every industry gets built in 3 stages. Space is no different. The second big idea from this book is a framework. And it's useful way beyond space. Any high-tech frontier industry follows the same 3 stages. Build, optimize, regulate. Asterisk. Stage 1, build the market. SpaceX blew up the cost ceiling on the supply side. But a cheap rocket is useless without something worth launching. Enter Planet Labs. A team of NASA engineers looked at SpaceX's new pricing and thought, what if we launched not one giant, expensive satellite, but hundreds of small, cheap ones? What if we photographed the entire surface of the Earth? Every day, in high definition. Old model. One NASA satellite, Landsat, could photograph the entire Earth once every 16 days. Planet Labs model. A constellation of shoebox-sized satellites, produced like smartphones on an assembly line, achieving daily global coverage. Once that capability existed, the business applications exploded. Farmers use it to optimize fertilizer. Hedge funds use it to count oil tankers in ports and predict commodity prices. Insurance companies use it to process disaster claims in hours instead of months. Supply-side innovation plus demand-side imagination. That's how you build a market. Stage 2. Optimize the market. As more and more satellites launch, low Earth orbit gets crowded. And here's the dark side no one talks about. Space debris, dead satellites, rocket fragments, metal junk flying at 28,000 kilometers per hour. Any collision creates thousands of new fragments, which creates more collisions. Scientists call it the Kessler syndrome, a chain reaction that could make certain orbital zones permanently unusable. This is a classic tragedy of the commons. Orbit is shared. Nobody owns it. Nobody's responsible for cleaning it. A Japanese startup called Astroscale decided not to wait for governments to negotiate international treaties that might take 20 years. They built a magnetic capture system to grab dead satellites and deorbit them. They turned a cleanup problem into a business. That's what it means to optimize a market. You spot the dysfunction, you solve it commercially, and you make the whole ecosystem healthier. Stage 3. Regulate the market. Here's a question. If you flew to an asteroid and mined $1 trillion worth of platinum, is it legally yours? In 2014, the answer was nobody knows. The 1967 Outer Space Treaty said no nation could claim space. But it said nothing about mining resources and selling them. Without clear property rights, no serious investor will touch asteroid mining. The risk isn't technical. It's legal. A company called Planetary Resources spent 2 years lobbying the U.S. Congress. In 2015, they got the Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act passed, the first law in history stating that U.S. citizens and companies have the right to own and sell resources extracted from space. Controversial internationally? Absolutely. But it cleared the legal path for commercial development. And that's what regulation at this stage means, not restriction, but establishing the rules of the game so the market can grow with confidence. Build, optimize, regulate. This pattern plays out in every frontier industry. If you can identify which stage a sector is in, you know what problems to solve and where the money is. Hashtag idea 3. The real power move is government plus market. Here's the part of this book that I think gets most overlooked, because it challenges a false binary. The story of commercial aerospace is often told as the heroic private sector finally escaping government incompetence. That's wrong, or at least dramatically incomplete. Behind almost every commercial space success story, government was doing something strategic, not commanding, not micromanaging, but playing for very specific roles. Role 1, first customer. The NASA contract that kept SpaceX alive. A deterministic order worth more than any subsidy because it proved the market was real. Role 2, early-stage investor. A company called Made in Space, later rebranded, was developing 3D printing technology for use in the space station. No venture capitalist would touch it. The return horizon was too far away, the technology too unproven. NASA's small business innovation grants kept them alive for years. They eventually produced working microgravity manufacturing technology. Those government innovation programs are basically national-level deep tech venture funds. Role 3, infrastructure builder. SpaceX launches from Cape Canaveral. That infrastructure, the launch pads, the tracking systems, the safety zones, was built by the government over decades. Private companies got to use a highway that cost billions to build. That's a massive hidden subsidy that never shows up in the free market narrative. Role 4, rule setter. Traffic management for orbital lanes. Frequency spectrum allocation for satellite communication. Environmental standards for debris. Without these rules, the market becomes a chaotic race to the bottom. The book frames the relationship between government and market using game theory. Specifically, the stag hunt. 2 hunters. They can each go hunt rabbits, safe, reliable, small reward. Or they can cooperate to hunt a stag, huge reward, but you need both of them. If one defects, the other gets nothing. Building a commercial space station? Mining the moon? These are stag hunts. No private company can do it alone. The risk is too enormous, the timeline too long, the coordination too complex. Government's role. Be the organizer who credibly commits to the cooperation. Place early orders. Absorb some of the first mover risk. Tell the market, I guarantee the hunt is real. I guarantee the rules hold. Now come hunt with me. This isn't government replacing the market. It's government making it possible for the market to take on risks it couldn't take alone. If you're looking for the next decade's biggest investment themes, whether in space, biotech, AI infrastructure, or energy transition, Watch for sectors where both long-term government commitment and genuine market competition are present simultaneously. That combination is where civilizational scale bets get made. Hashtag final thoughts. 3 ideas from the new space economy. First, the revolution started with a cost collapse. When the market replaced the government as the primary driver, efficiency exploded. SpaceX didn't just build better rockets, it changed the model entirely. Second, every frontier industry grows through the same 3 stages. Build the market, optimize it, then regulate it. Knowing which stage you're in is the most valuable map you can have. Third, the future belongs to the dance between government and market, not their conflict. The winning countries and companies will be those that figure out how to make that partnership work. The biggest misconception about space is that it's still about exploration. It's not. It's about infrastructure, data, resources, strategic positioning. The sea of stars that once belonged to governments and dreamers now belongs to anyone who understands business and has the courage to look up. See you in the next one.